Hello everybody, this is Bobby Mills for theindependent.com with a number one initial version of In the Hoops. So we changed from football to basketball. We have with us, and we're so honored, Superintendent of Schools here at Central City.
Nice to have you.
Jeff Jensen. Oh man, thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely.
I know you're busy. So we just took a little trip through your new, is it the Bison Activity Dome?
Yeah, the correct term that we went with after several different things that came up was Bison Activity Dome.
Aha.
So we had to keep the word dome in there.
Yes, and I am just about speechless. So tell us, we talked about this, was it 5 years ago? I don't remember, 4.5, 5 years ago?
Yeah, this is my 7.5 year here, and we were kind of undergoing a lot of changes that we needed to make,
Yeah.
and we were kind of spinning wheels a little bit, and we dramatically updated all of our academic areas and facilities, and part of that was at some point being able to put in another gymnasium, something that would actually be able to host districts and help our community. We couldn't host wrestling, we couldn't host basketball districts, those types of things, because our current facility was just too small.
Yeah.
And I think one of the greatest things that we've been able to do over those 7.5 years is we've done something for every academic activity and athletic piece over that time.
Wow.
And they've been major changes, major improvements. And as we look 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, everything meshes down the road and in the future to where you're not wasting money. You can see a method to the madness, and eventually some point we'll bring our elementary over here and we'll be one campus.
Yeah.
But that method to the madness fits everything that what we're doing strategically planning.
Well, it looks like a small college campus now to me compared to what it did. Maybe it was up further back in 4.5 or 5 years. Tell us how the idea, because I remember you mentioning the idea of a dome, and I'm going, how's he gonna do this? But then I thought about it, and
Yeah, well, if you walked in here 7.5 years ago, you would have saw a 1968 building that had no changes really to it since 1968.
Right.
Your science rooms were actually the same desk as 1968.
Yeah.
Our kids were doing research from a closet. And I mean, we have some really good kids that are going to the National Science Fair every single year,
Yeah.
and they're working from a closet. And so if you walk down into our industrial tech area, I mean, we couldn't build walls for a house or even really build a shed because you couldn't get them out of that facility. Because the height was it was poor. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't what you needed. Our kids weren't prepared welding wise or anything like that. So we really did a lot of planning in terms of what we needed to do academically. Career pathways was a big area that we wanted to focus on. Now we've completely upgraded our industrial tech area. So in the auto, construction, and welding side, our science rooms have been completely gutted. We have things in there that you would see in a college. And that is what a lot of people say when they walk in here, is that it looks like a college campus.
it does.
And that's a little bit of the look that we wanted. But the other side of it is we didn't want you to walk in here and see where an addition was or wasn't. We wanted everything to mesh together. Our architect, CMBA, has done a great job in terms of planning. And they've been on this facility since the very, very beginning, since the first middle school was built here and everything else, and the actually original high school before it was CMBA. So you can't tell what's an addition or not, and everything's meshed together. The dome idea, honestly, I can't take credit for that. That was Brett Kennedy, one of our board members, that at 2 a.m. in the morning, as we were looking at gyms, he's like, hey, what do you think about this dome idea? And of course, nobody answered him. We kind of laughed at it, and by noon the next day, we're kind of like, boy, they look pretty cool. They're in Oklahoma, they're in Kansas, they're in Missouri, they're in Texas. But then you start finding this thing called FEMA, and that the FEMA will pay 75% of that structure. So his crazy idea at 2 o'clock in the morning all of a sudden had a little bit of legs to it.
Yeah.
And so we kind of quickly scrambled to get into the state of Nebraska to be able to start submitting grants. And 32 months later, we were accepted with our grant, over $4 million, which is like hitting the lottery in a small town of Central City, Nebraska.
It is.
And so then 3 months of bidding and 20 months of construction, 4.5 years later, we're going to be able to open this thing on Thursday.
That's unbelievable. I kept picturing this thing being away from the school a long ways, but they don't do it that way, do they? I mean, it's okay to make it a part of a school and make it look blended in.
Yeah, and we visited a lot of these down in Kansas and Missouri, and actually the one that we modeled the most was Webb City, Missouri.
I saw a picture of it, yeah.
And that one was actually tied to their existing building. Some of them were kind of separate.
Yeah.
We were really the first one that has used the roll-up doors, because we really wanted to be able to sit in our commons, look through that facility, and see the basketball floor, volleyball floor, wrestling area, all from one side. And so we went with the actual roll-up doors as opposed to big FEMA doors that you would have very little visual into.
Yeah.
And being able to have those open for most times, it really added kind of that you're almost looking through glass. And when we did phase 2, we had plans for what phase 3 might look like, and so we actually had windows that were there that were easily removed and then sold. And so again, that kind of fit our method to the madness of what the future would bring, had we been able to get this grant.
Yeah. Tell me what this doesn't look like a storm shelter. Tell me what kind of wind speeds this thing can withstand. When I looked at it, I'm going, holy cow.
Yeah, so
you're safe in here, Jeff.
Yeah, you're actually, when you walk into that facility, it's able to withstand winds of 250 mile an hour. We've talked to, of course, Webb City that they had multiple tornado warnings since theirs has been open. They had a concert going on during it, during an actual tornado warning. They didn't stop what they were doing. They just kept going with their concert because they were 100% safe in there. They've opened up at different times where kids are playing basketball or playing volleyball and kind of running around, because once you're in that structure, you're 100% safe. And and I think you also have to look at Central City of why a storm shelter is important. When you look at their mitigation plans for years, storm shelters has been something that's been on there for a long time, because the water table is really high here. I mean, you don't have to dig very far and you hit water.
Yeah.
So most people here don't have basements. So with the dome structure or your mitigation plan on the storm shelter, it's built for the half-mile radius or a 5-minute walk is who you're accounting for within that area.
Sure.
The more people you can put in there, the more money you get from the federal government to do it. And so we were able to use a July evening at 7 p.m. with activities going on in school, the park, and the pool, that there could be 2,865 people here.
Wow. So that's the capacity.
That's the capacity for a storm. Now for an activities event, it's 2,098.
Wow. And nothing will touch that. There's no other dome like this in the state, is there?
No, and so of course, when we announced that we were building a dome first in the state, we kind of took a little bit of backlash, because you got one in Sutton, you got one in South Sioux, you got one in Hooper.
It's different,
but it's a different type of structure. I mean, this is a monolithic dome, completely made out of concrete. It's built kind of like the old Metrodome way, where they did the stem wall, they inflated it so it's pressurized during that time, and then they start spraying for 3 months straight shotcrete.
Wow.
And so it's 12 inches towards the bottom, 6 to 8 inches towards the top, and you're 100% enclosed in concrete.
I was going to say, you're pretty safe in that. So it's slated for the opening. Now this is being taped on a Wednesday, Tuesday, November 29th. So you're slated to open December 1st, is that
Yeah,
correct?
December 1st we have wrestling here, and so we have a girls duel at 5 o'clock. And then the boys duel will follow that at 6 p.m. And then we got basketball on the Friday night against Gibbon. And then on that Monday we have an actual wrestling junior high invite that we'll have there too. So we're going to be able to get kind of the wrestling duel out of the way, the basketball game, and then the wrestling invite to see how everything works. And we'll be able to have 3 full mats down for the wrestling invite on Monday.
Yeah.
And actually, if we only brought out a side of bleachers, we could actually get 6 wrestling mats down in there.
Wow. And Josh Salmon behind the camera, my videographer and great producer, will show footage of all this stuff. And we went through the new wrestling and the gymnasium that had been, the weight room blew us away. Was that your vision, the weight room?
Well, one thing, I mean, again, through our strategic planning, I mean, we had a lot to do here. I mean, we had outgrown our weight room. I mean, we couldn't put more than 25 kids in there hardly and have enough space. And so, I mean, you had to go through, okay, do we build a standalone facility? You're looking at $1 million with a standalone facility. And of course, then you're walking somewhere to get to it. And so when this grant came through, we were able to then renovate our current high school gym, which was our secondary gym. And so we gutted that, the floor that had ran east-west. We converted one floor going north-south. We were able to use the other side for the weight room.
Yeah.
Where the previous weight room was, we put turf up there. We can drop a batting cage down for softball, baseball, and golf. Yeah, we kind of laid that out as something that we absolutely needed. Otherwise, you're going to be doing it down the road. Credit to our community, credit to our booster club. I mean, they raised the money for that weight room in one evening at a golf tournament. And so, I mean, it's all brand new equipment. Our kids missed one day of weights as we transitioned to building it, to getting the old weights sold and the new weights installed.
That's called planning, boy, I'm telling you.
You know, it was a lot of head scratching, a lot of probably tempers flared at points.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of lack of sleep, but I can't wait to get this thing finally done so you can sleep. No, it's taken a lot of work, a lot of effort from a lot of people, and you know, as soon as you start talking about effort and a lot of people, you cannot forget about our custodians.
No.
Because I mean they've had to do a lot over the last few years.
Oh,
I mean,
boy.
this is the third phase of construction. And so there's been a lot of things that we've tried to handle on our own a little bit too, just to save costs wherever we could. So anytime somebody can pick up a hammer or a shovel and help out, you know, we're asking people to do that.
Yeah.
And so a lot of credit to our custodians through this process.
No kidding. How have things changed since you've been here?
You know, I would like to say that we're in a much better place than we were
Looks
7.5
like
years
it.
ago. And you know, you can sit there and you look on the outside and it's the facilities. But when you come inside our hallways, when you come inside our classrooms, our people are what is important.
Yeah.
You know, and we had to make some really tough, difficult decisions.
Yeah.
But man, we have the right people here.
Good.
We have great coaches here, great activity sponsors here. We got great parents here. We're in a totally different environment than we were a few years ago.
And I encourage, you're not doing tours anymore, but come over and take in a basketball game or something to see this place, because it's just, I've seen a lot of places, I've played a lot of places, a lot of big venues, and I'm just knocked out. Everything's right. So,
yeah, and it's truly unique. I mean, I think we've covered a lot of the bells and whistles and the small details.
Yep.
Again, tied it back into that other facility. And, you know, and again, I mean, our dome is getting a lot of attention. I know we spoke at the School Board Association, you know, just a couple of weeks ago,
Yeah.
and we get all kinds of calls about how you did this and whatnot. But, you know, it was a lot of time. It was a lot of seeing it through. And but again, I think the thing that I'm most proud of is not the dome, but the reality that we've changed every academic activity and athletic piece over the last 7.5 years. You know, and that's credit to a very supportive board and community that has helped to get us to where we are now.
yeah, you can do all the talking you want, but you have to have that underneath support to do it.
Yeah, you got to be in the right place at the right time.
And,
you know,
it's done. You're doing a great job.
So-
I just am so impressed, and even more impressed that you took the time to talk to us today. So
Absolutely.
You got to come over and see this. It's one of the most impressive places. It's an instant historical landmark, is what I like to think. So what a great job, Jeff.
Well, we appreciate it. And,
Yeah.
you know, I think we were right 17 times. We were wrong 16, so we're +1. And
That's right.
and this is the result of it.
Whatever it's worked out. But thanks for taking the time
Absolutely.
to talk to us.
Thank you.
You bet. Get over here, and Jeff Jensen, Superintendent of Schools over here. Get over here and take in an athletic event and look at this place. So for Josh behind the camera, Bobby Mills, for In the Hoops, we'll catch you down the road next time.